The debate about the Indigenous voice to Parliament continues, as it will for weeks and months to come. You know, I support the voice if it's done properly, and you know I took a role with the previous government to help design how a voice could work on a local, regional and national level. And I won't bang on about this every day, but as you know, I've had people on the show arguing for it and against it, and I'll continue to do that. And I do want to address tonight some of the FURPHIES that keep being put up by the opponents of a voice. The most common bit of misinformation is that the Indigenous voice will inject race into our Constitution. This is a particularly divisive deception because race is and was mentioned in the Constitution from the start in a number of clauses right from the inception. There was section 127 which said Aboriginal Australians should not be counted in our census, and it was repealed in that 1967 referendum. But there's still section 25 that says that the members of any race excluded from voting should not be counted as citizens in any particular state. That's kind of redundant, you'd think, but it's still there. And then there's the race power, a clause that once excluded Indigenous Australians, but after the 1967 referendum included them, so that Canberra can now make laws for Indigenous Australians under section 5126. That's a crucial power. It's under this power that the federal government can pass native title laws, for instance, and undertake policies like the Northern Territory intervention. And it's under this race power, or a new version of it, that federal parliament has the power to establish an Indigenous voice. In fact, it's because of this power that a voice in many ways makes most sense, seems to be so fair and just. Because how can you give federal parliament the special power to make laws about a particular race without giving those people the right to offer advice, to have a say on those laws? So race in the Constitution has a long history, as long as the Constitution itself. And with or without the Indigenous voice, race is in our Constitution and will remain there unless there's a referendum to remove it. Another furphy being pushed around is the labelling of the voice proposal as Labor's voice. That again is misleading. The voice proposal was worked up over many, many years. It actually has a history of many decades, but more recently was worked up by Indigenous leaders who worked closely with constitutional conservatives, including from the Liberal Party. This happened years before the Uluru Statement from the Heart, and it was really only after that statement in 2017 that Labor and the broader left got on board. Also, the Coalition was proposing a legislated voice when it was in government, and Labor is now proposing the constitutional enshrinement that many Liberals have long supported. The Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and the Minister for Indigenous Australians Linda Burney have made it clear they want a bipartisan position on this. They have gone out of their way to make sure it is not seen as a Labor project, a party political project, but as a nationally unifying one. Another deliberate deception is the claim Labor wants the electorate to vote on this without any detail. The Prime Minister has released the draft constitutional amendment and the draft referendum question. This is absolutely crucial detail, and this would all have to be legislated and debated in Parliament before anything could happen anyway. And as for the detailed shape of a voice that Parliament could enact, there's a vast amount of detail available. I've got it here in this 275-page report from the group that I was involved in under the Morrison government. It's all available online to anyone who wants to read it. Labor says it's going to borrow heavily from that document, and it has said it's also going to put out more detail on its preferred model before too long. So there's plenty of detail available now for those who take the time. More is on the way. And there's never been any chance or any suggestion that anyone would be asked to vote on this blind. Critics have also tried to argue the voice would be the plaything of Indigenous elites, leaders who already play a leading role in the national debate. But this too ignores all of that work that's gone into a voice. The design process was all about ensuring there is local grassroots input so that the real people on the ground get to feed in useful ideas and feedback. I wouldn't support a voice unless it could work like that. It's got to come from the grassroots and it's got to be truly representative. And that's certainly what the co-design groups have recommended. Parliament can reform and refine it over the years anyway. The other furphy is that the voice would be a third chamber of Parliament. This is the Malcolm Turnbull fabrication that, strangely, his bitter Conservative enemies now embrace. The voice is advisory only. That's a precondition. No government would be beholden to its recommendations. It could not veto any government decision or law. It would carry some political weight, of course, in the public sphere, but no government would have to take instructions from it. It's not a third chamber, it's an advisory body. So there you have it, a few furphies dispelled. Oppose the voice all you like. Respectful disagreement is something I welcome on all issues, but people should stick to the facts.